Hear me. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dating God's Way with myself and my lovely wife, Pastor E. As we started off with T Inspires, one of our sponsors for Dating God's Way. And each week hopefully, we'll be showcasing a new business or old business, any business that you would like to introduce to our audience. Hey, Pastor E, tell us a little something about T Inspires that you know.
Yeah, so T Inspires is one of the quotes from T Inspires is innovation is priceless. Innovation is implementing what hasn't been done. So T Inspires creates, manages, and updates multimedia content for websites, social media, mobile applications, interactive media, and other digital products. So they specialize in digital branding and interactive marketing campaigns. So, in other words, they bring digital vision to life.
Yeah.
Excuse the hassle and use a digital team. T Inspires. Yes.
Awesome, awesome,
Yes, yes, yes.
awesome. Tara is my daughter. She's my daughter, and I'm so um happy. I'm so proud to introduce her brand to an audience. It's a marketing brand. So if you have marketing material or things that you need creative ideas behind, Tara is the person, and she is a person. She is a she's a video producer, audio producer. She's everything, and you will not be dissatisfied with her business. Hey, so welcome to tonight's stream of Dating God's Way. I hope you guys have been enjoying our conversations in Dating God's Way. I hope that you have been gleaning from some of the spiritual knowledge that we've been sharing. And, I don't want to make no mistakes about it. This is Dating God's Way. So, so many of our solutions or things that we talk about, they're not from a conventional or from a yeah, I'd say from a conventional place because they are spiritual leading, they are biblical leading, and so I know that there may be some disagreement, but there is no disagreement with the Word of God. Hey, I didn't write the rules; God did. Um, so yeah, so but tonight, I think tonight, Pastor E, I think I'm kind of in this fussy mode today because of some of the events that has happened these past 2 days in my world. So I'm kind of in a fussy mode, and so I'm gonna try not to fuss a lot. No fuss a lot, right?
No
I'm not
fussing tonight. No fussing.
no fussing tonight. But this subject is something that Pastor E and I, when we were engaged, some of the questions and some of the theology and the ideas that we came across and really had to fight through, and really had to come in terms that what we're gonna fight through whatever this theology is, and I call it a theology, but it's the theology of like test driving, right? Is trying it out before you commit to it. You know, it's like when you go buy a car, you test drive the car, whether it's new or used, you test drive the car to see if this the car that you want to put the rest of, you put your 5 years into paying this car note off. If this is what you want your life to be. So we're gonna talk. So we got tonight. We're talking about test driving. So yeah, Pastor, you want to give an intro?
Yeah, so one of the things that came up when we started dating is one of the things that I heard was you need to test it out before you get married, okay? And
Okay.
so the premise to this was around sexual compatibility. right? You need to make
Right.
sure that you are sexually compatible with the person that you're going to be marrying. Okay, so this is
Right.
before we got married. This was,
Yes.
while we were still in the dating stage. This was advice that we received from Christians that we should be testing it out. I think also, so that's sexually, but then also a part of it can go even to a deeper extent about not just, test driving for sexual compatibility, but then also this idea of, well, maybe you guys want to, since you're now engaged, maybe you guys should start living together.
Right.
Okay, maybe you should start living together to make sure that you are compatible with each other and living together. And then, maybe you should start putting your money together. There's just a lot of ideas about test driving that even come from believers. So I think it is an appropriate dating guys way topic.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
an
Yeah.
appropriate dating guys way topic.
Yeah. Somebody told me, when I told an older person told me when we were getting married, they were he was concerned about me getting married at a ripe age of 25. And I'm sorry, do you still? And let me know if y'all still hear feedback. I heard somebody said that they was getting some feedback from me when I talk. But he asked me. He said, "Well, instead of getting married, don't you want to go out and soil your wild oats,
So,
right?"
soil wild oats.
Oh, it's not soil. I thought it
No,
was soil.
soil is bad. So,
Soil. Oh, so I'm sorry. See, I had the jargon all wrong. See, there I go. But yeah, but so there is, yeah. Somebody say what? So
yes.
yeah, yeah. So there is a there is um there's a way of about a way of thinking about some of our youthfulness or youthful living. Like Mormons, the Mormon religion. No, not the Mormon. It's I think it's the Jesuits, the ones in Pennsylvania, and the Amish.
Amish.
They give their youth, even though they convert them into the faith, or they raise them up in the faith, they give them a period of time where they can go out and be wild and then come back into the faith, right? Or be excommunicated from the faith, you know. But there is still that kind of notion, even with our culture. Maybe that's not what they do as a practice, but there is a notion of test drive, or go out there, see what's out there before marriages, the old the ball and the ball and chain, so before you get tied down and before you get committed, you know try all these things out first.
So yeah, so I mean, look, without getting to all of the answers, I do think that, practical reasons. There are reasons why people think that this is sound wisdom. Okay, practical reasons. Because what if you marry someone? Okay, so let's get into it. What if you marry someone and you're not sexually compatible? What if you marry someone and you're not compatible with this person as it relates to living together? Or this person is bad at managing their money? Shouldn't you just test it out?
Right.
Okay. And I think that those are the types of questions that people get into because they're like, I'm making this lifetime commitment. I don't want to get divorced. I don't want to spend all of my money on this relationship, all of this investment in time, and then find out that this person is not compatible with me in one of these different ways.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think we have to start with, the truth in this situation is, not about, this question of just compatibility, but what does wisdom say? Okay. And to find out what wisdom says, we have to go to the Bible.
Yes. That's where wisdom starts with God.
Because a lot of people who have these ideas are believers, but it's not a biblical basis.
There you
There's
go. That's
no
right.
biblical basis for test driving as it relates to sex, living together, or bank accounts. There is no biblical wisdom that will lead us to make any of those three choices. So dating God's way is really, as we've been talking about, is dating according to the word of God. And we don't see any of these things in the word of God.
Not
No.
not at all.
So some things we do see in the word of God, and we want to go there, is, give no provisions for the flesh.
Hmm.
Okay? To gratify its desires. That's Romans 13:14. Give no provisions for the flesh to gratify its desires. Okay?
Yep.
So this what we're really doing tonight really is debunking this whole notion of test driving before marriage, shotgun before marriage, this old term, but that's
Yeah.
how we heard it, and or being married before being married.
Hmm.
Okay?
Yep.
So give no provision for the flesh.
Yep.
And I think another part of that is you know when it talks about in Hebrews 13 that marriage is to be held in high honor. So it's something that is not lightly going into. This idea of leaving and cleaving is not something that we do haphazardly. It's not
Yeah.
something that we do to see if it's going to work. Okay? Because the notion of test driving is we're going to see if it's going to work. And if it doesn't work, then we won't do it.
I heard somebody say on a live stream the other night that marriage was only a piece of paper. You know, um, and so and as a believer, as a Christian believer, as a God believer, as a child of God, um, we should know better or understand better than that marriage is more than a piece of paper, but that marriage is the the spiritual tie, the spiritual bond, God's legal way, God's legality for producing a family is through the act of marriage.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so when we begin to live married but not be married, we are already acting out of the will of God.
Out of the will of God. Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how. So let's talk about the practicality of test driving. Let's talk about the practicality of test driving as it aligns with the Bible.
Yeah. So, as we talk about the of test driving, there is the idea that, the wisdom in test driving, the worldly wisdom in test driving is I need to make sure that this person has what is necessary to satisfy me. Okay. And so, because, you know, the idea that sex is a huge part of marriage, is has some truth to it and then some not truth to it.
Yeah,
Okay, right.
yeah.
After 20
Talk
years of
about it.
marriage, right, I believe I can say this that, you know, when I was single and I was thinking about marriage, I thought that, sex was 80% of marriage, right? That's just from my perspective, right? that most of what marriage was about that kind of intimacy, But as I matured, I came to understand that sex is a part of marriage, but it's not the biggest part of marriage. It's an important part of marriage, so let me not be misquoted. It's an important part of marriage, but it does not have the emphasis that people put on it,
Yeah.
right? And I will say this, that I think that, intimacy, sexual intimacy, emotional intimacy, all those things are important to me, not just, they said to men, but it's important to me, as a woman as well. But when we talk from a biblical perspective, we can understand that connection that of two flesh becoming one goes beyond just physicality. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I think we have to understand that in math that an equation is incomplete even if one number is off. And
Yeah.
so how sex is part of the equation in marriage. Intimacy, everything, it all goes into the equation that equals a working marriage,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So you have to have all these things. And so when we talk about marriage and when we talk about test driving, we know that, or we understand that test driving brings in problems that unmarried relationships are not built to handle.
Yeah.
The commitment component that's built into marriage is not there when it's test driving, right? And so when you're test driving, your your feelings has no resolution. When you are married, marriage is a commitment to resolution,
Yeah.
right? Marriage is a wow. That's interesting. That just hit me. That marriage is a commitment to resolution, and test driving and just dating. Um, you could you could throw it out the window or go wherever you want. You can break up at any time. But when you are married, that you have made that commitment to God that through thick and thin, we're going to get this right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's one of the reasons not to test drive, because there is no commitment to get it right. There is no commitment to resolution. There is no commitment to a resolve, right? And as we know, sex before marriage can also taint our view, even if it's with the person that we eventually marry. Takes our view of sex within marriage, right? It is we know from a biblical perspective that it talks about, sexual immorality and the way that God views sexual immorality, so much so that in 1 Corinthians 5, he says not to associate with sexually immoral people.
Yeah.
So this is like a huge view to God, and I believe should also be a huge view to us, that it opens up doors in our lives, as Pastor Willie said, not just to be outside of the will of God, but also to introduce what should be a pure union to things that are unpure.
Yeah, yeah. I'm reminded of the scripture, and we're just rolling here. That one of my favorite scriptures, that when a man finds a wife, he finds a good thing and obtains favor from the Lord. But in adverse, when you are test driving, you're not finding that favor. You're finding that pleasure, you're finding that self gratification, but that favor that comes from the Lord, you're that the man is not, God is not obligated to man to pour upon him that kind of favor, because there is no commitment.
Yeah,
There is no marital commitment.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. We have a question at 8:20.
Okay.
While we're on this part of the subject.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as a single, how can I mature in my view of sex and marriage, or is it something I receive better understanding on once I'm married? I think that's the reason why we're having these conversations, because the sanctification is a process, but the purity, the renewal of your mind in this area should begin to happen now. You want mind renewal to happen prior to marriage, right? Because me and Pastor Willie are both witnesses. When you have to deal with these things after marriage, it adds a component that is hard. It adds a hard, it's already hard because you're marrying someone you don't know. That you are marrying someone that you still need to get to know. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna add in, an immature view of sex or unbiblical view of sex. You're gonna add that into that. It can make it impossible because people then start to cheat, have emotional affairs. All types of things happen when we don't have a renewed mind in this area.
And then, I believe that we counsel, at least one couple that says, yeah, before we got married, sex was all that. But now after marriage, sex is not what it used to be.
Several couples we several couples I have counseled that have
Yeah.
stated that fact. Right.
Yeah.
And so what was the expectation? The expectation was a porn star. The expectation was, now we don't have to sneak around anymore outside of the will of God. We don't have to be sneaky no more. The temptation isn't there anymore because the lust, sin was what was driving the sex before marriage.
Yeah.
Lust and sin was driving it. So it was exciting. It was
Yeah.
exciting because the devil made it exciting. We talk about spiritually. The devil made it
He made
exciting.
it exciting.
And so after marriage, it became boring because the sin wasn't there, the lust wasn't there, the enticement wasn't there. That's
Yeah.
why the wholeness must begin prior to marriage.
Yeah. 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 It's amazing how sin is exciting and sneaky, but yet the wages of sin is death.
Yeah, the wages of sin is death. But I have heard, multiple women who, unfortunately participated in sex with the person that they married prior to marriage, but then after marriage didn't want to have sex with him at all. Okay?
Wow.
And so we know that there is something was there that took that relationship because it wasn't birthed from a spiritual place. So maybe that, person now withholds sex because you have to do something that I want you to do. If you don't do it, I'm going to withhold sex. If you
Mhm.
withhold sex from your spouse, you don't understand sex
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
sex is our opportunity to connect intimately.
You don't understand the Bible where the Bible says that your body belongs to the
Their
man and
body belongs to one another. So
one
there is
another.
a
Yes,
part of
exactly.
sex that you don't understand. You don't just get to say no.
That's right. Whether you feel like it or not, that's marriage. That's what it is in marriage.
Biblical marriage. And so I do think that there is a spiritual maturity and a mind renewal that must happen prior to marriage would be the best space for it to happen. Because if not, it can deteriorate a union after.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So
So that's the sexual part of it. But
yeah.
what about this other part of it
Okay.
about living together?
Yeah.
Let's get into our second. I think we have like a three prong tonight. Let's get into our second part of this about living together.
Many people, I kind of feel for this subject with the economy that we have been living in and for the past at least 20 to 30 years, probably no, 25 to 30 years, you know, having a roommate seemed like the most sensible thing to do, right? I mean, when you talk about practicality and you talking about bringing two incomes together and maybe you can get a house in in Bowie or you can get a nice apartment in, somewhere in a nice part of the city, or a nice part
Suburbs,
DuPont in the suburbs, or DuPont Circle, or whatever. You can afford a little bit bigger,
the city.
right?
Uh-huh.
The city, other than trying to do everything on your own dime, right? But the practicality is there. But let's talk about that, some of that practicality and some of the pitfalls, when you're moving forward, just based off of, um, your right now needs, your financial needs, or your need to live elsewhere, or whatever.
Yeah. The scripture that comes to mind with me in a lot of cases like this is that there is a way that seems right to man,
Yeah, I
but the
feel you
end
on
is
that.
up in destruction. Because
Hmm.
I see, even with believers who try this out, in a lot of cases, the wedding gets pushed back. One person now no longer wants to get married as fast as they did at first. They don't, sometimes they don't get married at all. Sometimes it is now 5 years, 10 years. And so, what the practicality of this is that now we've made a semi commitment, because
Wow.
living together is a semi commitment. So, we
Yeah.
made a semi commitment to share responsibility for external things like bills, external things, right? But we have not, because we did not spiritually before God make the spiritual and emotional investment in the relationship.
Hmm.
So now I have a shallow hole of a, commitment,
Hmm.
because that person came into it. Something that's going around the internet now, Pastor Will, and I want to just mention it because it's people are talking about it. This
Yeah.
idea of life partner. Okay, so we have the Smiths. Okay, when I say the Smiths, I'm talking about Will and Jada. Since that's going around the internet right now.
Oh no, no, no.
They
Oh no.
life partners. Okay, they're life partners. They have a partnership. And so, with that partnership, allows the idea of partnership without a real spiritual marital union means that, we can agree to some things, maybe like living together. That feels fine for the person. Okay. Maybe, getting a car together, maybe getting, certain things together because it's like a business. We have a partnership.
Right.
But when it comes to the deeper investments, okay, like me being faithful to you, the deeper investments, like me taking time to sacrifice and give of myself, okay, those things start to, become, what is that? When it becomes too much, it becomes overwhelming for the person involved because they got into the partnership to be happy.
Yeah.
Okay? They got into the partnership to fulfill some need of the partnership.
Yeah.
So where's my return on investment? Instead of
Yeah.
understanding that a marriage is a giving, it's a giving of oneself to become one with another person.
Yeah. 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 And at the if y'all remind me at the end of this broadcast, I'm gonna give you my opinion of entanglement, since Pastor
Oh,
Eve brought up Will and Jada.
whew,
Um, I'm gonna give you my my
whew.
my childish foolery about entanglement. But
Yeah,
go ahead, Pastor E.
yeah, but shacking up. I mean, that's what we talking about, shacking up. So we talking about, look, you making a part commitment. You making
Yeah.
and then we wonder why that person wait to marry us, or why the person is not, giving at the rate we feel like they should be giving that, because they didn't have to make a commitment all the way. So of course they're not giving, right? It's like, it's the idea that once we get married, it's gonna be something more.
Right.
right? So we living together now, but once we get married, it's gonna really be on the pop because something gonna change. That is a lie, right? We have counseled so many people with that idea, and it never has happened.
Yeah.
It's never happened because that next level of commitment that marriage brings, right? It it never was required of both people, right?
That's right. That's
Right?
right. That's right. So, when um if you if you doing the marriage thing without being married, without being married, without being married, if you're doing a married thing without being married, um, there is that level of commitment, that level of dedication, that level of working it through, that level of stick to itiveness. The next level isn't there. It just isn't there. You have nothing binding you together other than bills.
Other than bills. And
Yeah.
there's a great scripture for this. People use this in another way, but Songs of Solomon 8 and 4, it says, "Do not arouse or awaken love until the time is right."
Hmm.
Okay? Do not
Yeah.
arouse or awaken love until the time is right. In
Yeah.
other words, don't give away them cookies or them keys until the time is right.
Yeah.
We talking about the night, Pastor Will? Don't give
Yeah.
away what the cookies or the keys before the time is right.
Yeah.
Before we both committed before God to go beyond just surface level commitments.
I know. I'm reminded of Jody and Baby's Boy.
Oh boy, oh, we're going to Jody baby boy. Uh
And I'm reminded how, Baby Boy always have vet keys to the car, and but there was no commitment, and Jody was doing whatever he wanted to do,
Yes, he was.
child in the house and everything, but there was no commitment from Jody because he was an immature baby's boy.
Yes.
And it's amazing how still we can be in these relationships and still be the immature baby's boy because because maturity is responsibility.
Yes.
Maturity is responsibility. It's responsibility to hold on. Yeah, Joey. It's responsibility to stand up and be shoulder the commitments that I have committed myself to. Right.
Yes. 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 Maturity is responsibility. And when we don't require that of a person who's already immature in some areas, then what you really saying is, I will take that I will put my life in the hands of a person who is
Yeah.
immature.
Right.
Right? That's like saying I'm gonna put my hands in the life of a teenager.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put responsibility in the life of a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do it. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah. And now you got the bank account open and got the bank account together and trying to figure out why is it always short, and you knew you put money in there because the other person is going out doing some Jody type thing, some immature type thing,
Yes,
some
and it doesn't have to be just cheating.
yeah, it's
It
not
can
cheap,
be
right?
being responsible with the bills. But
They
see, that's another area that people start, right? We're talking about our third prong now, that people start integrating money and credit,
yeah,
right? So you start integrating money and credit,
yes,
right? And without that commitment, and so now it doesn't lend for the type of conversations that we need to have about money.
amen,
Now, me and Pastor Willie went through a lot of phases of money. Okay.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. In the last 20 years, we done
Yes.
went through a
20
lot
phases.
of phases
Uh,
of money, right?
1 year brings in another phase.
Well, praise God. That's the truth. And it's for good reason though now. But in the beginning, okay, we put our money together, all of it. Right? Once we got married, put it all together, we split it apart, you put this in this account. We've done many phases of money, right? Because what's the truth? The truth is we had to mature. I was used to living on my own. I just want to, this is a good space to think about this in because what happens after marriage, trying to do it before marriage, you're going to see why it doesn't work as well. I
Right.
was bringing in my independent mindset. I was used to taking care of myself, okay, living on my own. I had a roommate, but I was responsible for my own bills. Okay, and so now we're coming together from two different money mindsets because my mindset was these bills got to get paid. This, and his mindset was different than mine. He was, buying cars, and he had a different mindset than I did.
I gotta be. You gotta. For me, it was you have to have a reserve of a reserve. You have to.
Oh, yes. And he had to have a backup of a backup of a backup. Well, I was like, we don't look. I don't care about no backup or no backup, as long as these bills getting paid. Okay, and so we came into marriage with different money mindsets. There was no way to resolve that prior to getting married.
No way.
Because time, maturity, raises, loss of jobs, all of those things taught us things that needed to mature in one another. Okay?
Right.
Now we need patience, we need grace.
And all the plans came together. The marriage plan, the financial plan, the intimacy plan, all of those things weren't separate of another. And when in dating, and if you are married before you get married, and you're doing all those things, you're almost doing all those things separately. But when you are married, all of those things are married together.
Yeah,
And so yeah, it's a and these are learning tools that we have learned, that now we could share with you, before you cross that, before you jump the broom, per
yeah,
se, so that you can jump the broom with a little bit more knowledge, and you will start, instead of starting down here and have to learn, you can start up here and continue and learn from higher places.
yeah. So don't put this question up, but I want to answer it. About you know, if a woman is mature, but she never meets a mature man. I just want to say about this, um, the thing that we're talking about tonight and every night that we do Dating God's Way is a maturity that must happen in both people. Okay, you will never find a perfect mature person, and
Yeah.
so a woman or a man that thinks like that. The reason why we're doing Dating God's Way is so that you can mature and the other person can mature, but also so you can mature together because you will never come to the plate with all the answers, right? This is trying to get us closer to a kingdom perspective, a biblical mindset, that at least we have the right mindset to mature in.
Yeah.
But the idea isn't that you're going to find a perfect person, that now we're going to connect together. Our perfection and maturity is going to come together, and boom, we good to go. That's not realistic, right? This is to bring us closer to maturity, not to be a measuring stick. Then
That's
now
right.
we're trying to make sure you better have all these things my pastor talked about, or we not get married.
Right.
No, it's to make sure your mindset is right, but also
Right.
that you're prepared for marital counseling, that you're prepared to mature together, grow together. That's where we're
Right.
trying to get us to.
Amen.
Right, Pastor?
Amen. That's right.
That's what we
That's
doing.
right. That's right.
That's what we
And you better, and you have to be careful before judging somebody on your own to be mature, that you are mature enough to to discern maturity.
Yeah, yeah,
You know.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Because it's a breadth of things. There's a there's a breadth of things that come with, when we're talking about maturity as it relates to marriage. Our ideas about how we're going to discipline our kids and what we're going to do about this and that. I mean, there are lots of layers.
Yeah.
So we're the goal is to have a biblical mindset so that at least we can work from the same places together.
Yeah.
Right, Pastor?
That's right. That's right. Somebody asked, so can we talk about we going to wait until we have it all together? Yeah, and you know, you wait until you come into an agreement about these things. When you
Yeah,
come into an agreement, and then you can continue on, and you won't have it all together. You won't have it all together, but you are in agreement that these are the things that we can build upon. And we are both in a good space to marry together, and we can grow from here. I mean, you'll never be perfect
no,
humanly. You'll never be spiritually. Yes, you'll be perfect in God, to a place of completion. But humanly wise, you're still going to trip down the steps. you know, so
yes, you're gonna still have mishaps within marriage. That's
yeah,
the reason why you have one another to
yeah,
help each other, to support each other. We're not preaching perfection because we have never made it ourselves.
absolutely,
We have learned to work alongside each other, to build one another up, edify each other. That's what marriage is about. So I think, when this idea of doing it before marriage is an idea of we're going to try to get it all together before we come together. And that is impossible because you're not yet together.
yeah. And when we start talking about like things about especially like in premarital classes and premarital counseling, and you start talking about bring your Experian credit report, bring your Experian and whatever the credit other two other credit TransUnion, you
Yeah,
know, you bring those credit reports to the premarital classes so we can see spending habits. We can your credit report shows your level of dedication with paying stuff off, and it also shows what you buy. And so we can question, why did you get that motorcycle when you at this particular time? I mean, maybe it was for your own good, maybe you needed it or whatever, but it would help your spouse know your spending habits before you do the big commitment in trusting each other with your life.
yeah. So a couple points that we want to leave with you guys tonight for sure. If you have questions, go ahead and hit us up in the comment section. We'll be glad to answer questions. But a couple of things we want to leave you with tonight. One of the reasons why we number one reason why we say no to test driving is because of the Bible, uh, because of God Himself. So that's number one. The number one reason why test driving in all areas is a no, because it's not biblical or spiritual wisdom. But
Yeah,
the second reason why we say no, okay, we say no to test driving is because there also has to be an agreement to contentment. Okay, what's contentment? What is contentment or being content? Right?
yeah,
Being content is my ability to be happy with my portion. Right? What I have received, what I have, what I've been given, to be satisfied, happy with my portion,
yeah,
right? And so being happy with my portion or satisfied with my portion is an important element of, marriage. Because maybe this person, you know, starting out, maybe the way that you come together intimately, or the way you do things together, it needs some work, right? It needs some work so that both people can be satisfied, and so both people can be like, whoa, that was awesome. But that's a part of marriage. That is a part of it.
Yeah.
It's a holy mystery. It's something that is mysterious, that is supposed to be worked out together, not something that's supposed to be contrived. And
Yeah.
it looks like we have some more questions.
Yeah. We have some more questions.
Before I get to the rest of my points, let's go to the question.
Yeah. So, what if they know their spending problems prior, but feel like they can change?
Okay? Right.
Yeah.
And so, I think that when we talk about, thinking that people can change, I think that people have to change. What am I saying? People have to change.
People have to change.
Show me where you changing. Right? I remember Pastor Willie. Pastor Willie, oh, he was telling me he not gone. Okay? He not gonna do this, he not gonna do that. Right? He was telling me, and you know what? I just watched him change. I did not bug him about it. I did not, oh, you gonna do this and you gonna do that. He said a whole lot of stuff. But I saw a pattern, right, of decisions being made differently than how he talked at the beginning of us meeting. So I
Yeah.
do think that you have to see change, right? And
Yeah.
somebody tell me that they're gonna change don't mean nothing. I need to see that change. I need
Yeah.
to see it being walked out because somebody can tell us anything. And sometimes they really believe it, but that
Yeah.
doesn't make it true. You need to see pattern of change.
Yeah.
You think,
Yeah.
what you think about that, Pastor?
Well, also, when you notice that when I say spending issues, that your spending habits may not be the same as my spending habits, right?
True, ours definitely not.
Maybe you go buy $100 worth of small things, and I just go buy $100 big thing, right?
Sure.
I'm a big ticket person. You may be a smaller ticket person.
Yeah, that's about
Um,
how we are too.
huh?
I said that's about how many you are.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
and so, but you have to evaluate these spending issues and come to a resolve somewhere that is this going to be a problem for me?
that's
Can
right.
I adjust, or can I live with this type of spending habit?
Right.
Or can
Right.
can can I adjust my own spending? And this is the thing about marriage and submission. Can I adjust my spending to fit their spending habit? Right? So that both of us, so that we can have, can I adjust mine? Not necessarily go without, but can I adjust how I spend? Um, if they have, if they have a spending habit that doesn't look like it's going to change, can I change?
Right, because look, we've had to compromise in this area for sure. I like vacations every year, right? And I want more than one vacation every year. I
Yeah.
want 3 to 4 vacations. Okay, I want to go away by myself. I want me and Pastor Will to go by ourselves. I want us and the kids to go by ourselves. Sometimes I want just me and the kids to go by ourselves. Okay, and so that was an adjustment.
Yeah.
Adjustment for Pastor Will. He like,
Yes.
what? You know what now?
Yeah, it's a big adjustment, especially when I start saying no, I'm not going. Y'all go ahead, or you can go by yourself.
And that's
But
why I was like, all right, we go. Because it's something I really valued. It's something I really wanted to do. And so we had to make adjustments. We made adjustments.
and it's something that we learn how to respect each other's space with. Like, this is what you need, and this is what I don't need.
That's right. He don't need it, fine. I do. And so that was a money adjustment, but also a respect that should come along with marriage. Okay, I see
Right.
another question
So
here.
somebody asked, so no joint accounts. What about joint accounts when they are planning for a wedding and having a joint account like that? Now, I think that when you are planning for a wedding, that's something different because your money is actually being spent, is going to somewhere to be spent, to be doled out, and you kind of saving up for something, which is kind of different than having bringing your finances together jointly and operating together, right?
Yeah.
So I think having that kind of account isn't like, it's more of an agreement rather than putting your salaries together and saying, hey, and living or acting out of a marital space before you actually get married.
I think the thing about that too, Pastor Will, is like, we can agree to save a certain amount of money. You agree to a certain amount, I agree to a certain amount. But the thing that the joint account does is it does, sometimes put a requirement or a responsibility on the relationship, even if it's for saving purposes. It can put uh, a weight on the relationship that it may not be ready for, right? And I think that that's the one caution with having a joint account is, if the person, for example, and we agree that we're going to put, you're going to put $300 a pay period, I'm going to put $300 a pay period, or I'm going to put, we're going to put $300 a month within an account, right? And then that person doesn't live up to their part, then what? Or that
Yeah.
person says, you know what, I'm gonna just do mine all in one swoop when I get this check. Is that gonna become areas of contention now? And so, the way we did it was we just agreed. This is the amount you're gonna do. This amount I'm gonna do, and we both were responsible for our own part of it. It's not science, but it does keep down the contention.
Yeah.
And somebody watching the account, somebody like, oh no, my tires just got busted, I need to go into the account. All of those things are things that can come up that push the relationship, put
Yeah.
pressure on the relationship, when maybe having the agreement or commitment to have a certain amount of money can just be left as that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, this is good, y'all. This is good conversation. So I mean, Pastor, you want to wrap it up? You do so good with the summaries and everything. I think you touched on one point in your ending. Did you have more?
Yeah, so so I was just saying, like, making sure that the biblical point of view is one reason why I said no. The second one is being content, learning to be content with your portion, what you have been given. But then I think also another point I would make to kind of bring this test driving in is, from a standpoint of, when Jesus met the woman in John 4, the Samaritan woman, and he told her that, look, you got all these husbands, or in other words, you have slept with all these people, and none of them are your husband. None of them are the person that you're really joined and committed with. I think it's my third reason for not test driving. Because it puts an emphasis on that person is not loyal to you. Spiritually, there has not been a connectivity, a agreement to do things God's way. And that's the way that we want to do it. We want to do it God's way. All right, I'm gonna let
Amen.
Pastor Will take us out with entanglement.
Hey, yeah. So this whole entanglement thing, and I'll say, since we're talking about test driving, entanglement. This is what happens when you test drive. Um, a homeboy went test driving with Jada, but Jada already belonged to somebody else because they weren't divorced. They were separated, but in separation, you are still married. And so it's like test driving somebody else's car. And I hate to put humans in the mind of a car, but it's like test driving somebody's car. It ain't yours.
Yeah.
And at some point, the owner can come and take it back. The owner can come, and Pastor Ian and I talked about this before. Is that when you are married, he's still the husband and she's still the wife.
That's correct.
No, and so um and when you and so that's why you should not um be become intimate
Yeah.
emotionally,
Yeah.
physically, mentally with the married person.
Yes.
They are off limits. They are off. They are off limits.
Yeah, and I think it's important to say too, Pastor Will, this is why it's important to become emotionally and sexually intimate after you are married. Because that is the way that God intended it to be. That's the way that God intended it to be. And I think that, a good thing that we can also make sure that we remember, and you guys can go ahead and type this in tonight, no cookies or keys before marriage. There is no cookies and no keys. Okay, no cookies, no keys. Before I have that spiritual commitment with another person. No cookies, no keys, no test driving.
Yeah, Abraham had an entanglement. Abram had an entanglement. With Abram had an entanglement and end up having a child that was outside of the promise.
Yeah. And look what happened with that child. Him and his mother had to leave. I mean, look, it was traumatic. They had
Yeah,
to leave. They had to leave the house. He didn't get the blessing like the other son did. My goodness. I mean, it's traumatic.
David had an entanglement with Bathsheba.
Yeah.
And look
And
what
then,
happened. The baby died.
right. Look how Solomon turned out.
The kids turned on. All this stuff happened.
Yeah.
And so, yes, exactly. So, when you end up, and you can just follow through it biblically, is that when you begin to do marital things outside of the marital context, you are asking for the judgment that comes with sin.
Yeah. So let's pause right here for a minute. We got another question. So
Yeah,
look, it's not too late. Look, okay, because somebody said if it's already got the cookies and keys, is it too late? It is not too
yeah,
late.
not
Right?
too late.
It is
As long as you're breathing, there's still grace for you.
it's still grace for you. Me and Pastor Will had to make a pause. Before we
Yeah,
got married, we had to make a pause and say, okay, stop. We
yeah,
didn't go crazy. We
yeah,
didn't go crazy, and everything needs to stop. And we need to get back to spiritual wisdom. We need to
yeah.
get back to biblical living so that we don't jack this all the way up.
Because our marriage we almost called it quits a week before our marriage,
We sure did.
before our wedding day. Yep,
Yeah. And some of it was because of some of the things we did months
absolutely.
prior, right? And so
Yeah,
it is not too late. It is a good, it's a good moment to stop and say, all right, I know that I've already messed this up, but let's get back to a biblical foundation. Let's get back on the right foot. I think
yeah,
you always can get back on right footing.
always.
Never too late. That's right. It's never too late.
It's never too late. If that's the one that God has called you to, and God has called them to you, it's
Yeah.
not too late. And there's always repentance,
Yeah.
and there's always getting back on the straight and narrow path.
Yeah. Yeah. You can do it.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you can do it. You can do
Yeah,
it.
man. There's always grace for you.
Yeah. So no cookies or keys. No cookies or keys before
Uh,
marriage.
no
Yes.
cookies or keys.
Get
But
that
look,
mind renewed. Get that
yeah,
mind renewed as it relates to sex before marriage. Let
yes,
the Holy Spirit renew your mind.
yes,
Be not conformed by this world and its way of thinking. Let the
yeah.
Holy Spirit renew.
Yes, yes. God is reforming the family structure through
Yes,
you.
through you. He is.
Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Amen. So thank you all for joining Dating God's Way. I'm gonna end out and I'm gonna share with you. Um, our daughter's business.
Yeah.
T
Tonight's
in
sponsor, T Inspires.
T Inspires.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah. And so yeah,
Inspires.
this is T Inspires,
And this video was made by T Inspires. Yes, yes, yes.
and she could do the same for you. Just contact T Inspires.
Yep,
Message us. We'll get you through to her.
absolutely.
And if you have a business that you would like advertised on our show, please send us information.
Yes, 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 yes. Yeah, yes, yes, yes. So this episode tonight is sponsored by T Inspires. Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. So thank you for joining us. I
Join
pray that you were encouraged. I pray that there were some nuggets out of this that you have taken with you. And if you have any questions or comments, keep typing in the stream.
Yeah, yes. Or hit us up on our page, Dating God's Way. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share, share, share. Get our subscriptions up as well, subscribers, so that people can know how to date God's way.
Amen. I didn't fuss too bad. There we go.
Good night. You
All
did
right.
great, honey.
God bless you guys.
Cheers.
Love you all.
Love you.